Recording. All right, guys. Welcome to the DFSArmy's Off Chalk podcast, and I got with me Burns. Burns, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good, guys.
A
A little bit about me and what I do with the Army is most of you know that I write the Shark Autopsy Report, which details lineup deconstruction for the Million Maker on DraftKings. I've been writing that for about over a year now for multiple sports. I've had multiple
big GPP wins.
You all know my two top sixth place finishes in the Millie Maker.
Last 2 seasons.
And
you're going back
last
to King
2
of the
seasons.
Beach, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm joining Hunter on that one. Hunter has been there before.
Not this year yet. Not
This
yet.
is
I'm
my
still
second
trying
time
this year. But Kevin will be there. The geek's going.
Yes. Kevin and I'm making a surge on the WFFC this year too. So
Making a push on that.
I want to go to Miami twice this year.
It's unfortunate that the
FanDuel's WFFC is in Puerto Rico on the same weekend as the DraftKings ones, but I do like the DraftKings one better. But that's a little bit about me. I'll turn it over to Hunter so he can explain a little bit about himself and his experience with DFS.
My name's Hunter. I go by my name on Slack and DraftKings and everywhere else pretty much, or HunterSinclair. And I've been with Kevin basically since the beginning, when it was basically just a blog that he was writing some articles, and we connected, and so we go way back. Been playing DFS for a long time. As Burns mentioned, I've been to a few of these live final type entries here. I like to chase those. Those are fun. Most of the time it's just throwing money down the tube, but it's exciting to sweat for that first place finish. It's hard for the winner take all kind of deal, especially when you come in second a bunch. No, we decided to do this podcast just to talk about some of the more off chalk plays. A lot of people, like a lot of the pods out there, they kind of go through the full set of games and talk about the obvious plays, the good plays, and like there's definitely a lot of those out there this week, but kind of like to try to dig a little bit deeper, look for some plays that are going to be a little bit lower ownership and still good plays, but solid plays, but ones where we can maybe get a little bit of advantage on the field. So I think that's what we wanted to focus on here, and I think with that, let's just dive right in. I only really prepared the main slate, Burns, but so if we want to jump into that, I know that there's probably a lot to talk about on the Carolina game, but it's not on the main slate for DraftKings, so I haven't dug in very deep on that yet. I will when I start to do my showdown stuff, but I don't know if you want to talk about that, but I don't have a whole lot of insight on the Carolina game. Otherwise, we can jump into the main slate.
I don't have too much on the Carolina game. It's not going to be some game that I'm actually going to be interested in. I'm actually not even going to play that showdown slate. I'm sticking to the main slate. I'm making a mad push for these qualifiers. I want to max out the 6 tickets to the King of the Beach. So my huge focus is on the main slate, this 10-game slate, and I think it's a slate that is going to present a lot of opportunity. I think it's a great slate.
They're doing that mini max again this week. I don't know if you played it last week, but it's the 50 cent max 150 entry for the King of the Beach that you can play. So I might give that a shot again this week.
Yeah.
I did well last week. I think I came in really close to the top. I was just off the nuts, but yeah.
Yeah, last week was crazy. I did not see that coming at all. With those huge scores.
It was crazy. We were on all the right plays. It was just having that perfect combination that really made it. I mean, you had to get over 300 to get in the money, but I mean in the big money. But
I was looking at my cash lineup. Yeah, I was looking at my cash lineup, and my cash lineups were like 260, 270, and I was like, oh my gosh.
All right, well, let's jump in. Let's jump into the first game here. It's actually one of my favorite on the slate, if not my favorite. Is actually the Baltimore-Cincinnati game.
Mm-hmm. So it's a very good game. Yeah, that's a very good game.
I really, really like this game, not just for the reasons why we'll go into, but also because there's not a lot of interest, it seems like, in this game industry-wide. I've listened to a lot of pods. People just are sort of not sure what to do here. They're not big on really any of the either side of the ball here, aside from maybe Mark Ingram and a bit of Lamar Jackson. But I think people are a little bit scared of the game, which makes me even more interested in it. I've got this game right now projected based off of our power rankings that that the Army puts out. This game right now projects at a really good back and forth matchup. It's not the ideal shootout because it's a really great run team against a really heavy pass team, but they both are going up against the opposite in defenses. So Cincinnati playing against what's been pretty poor Baltimore pass defense, and Baltimore playing against an atrocious Cincinnati run defense. I can see this game really becoming a shootout, but in a non-traditional sense. So I really like all parts of the game, but specifically on those two sides of the ball. So it creates some interesting lineups when you can stack the run game. I mean, you could easily stack Lamar Jackson, even run him with Mark Ingram, although that's not typically something you would want to do with a guy that doesn't catch a lot of passes. But considering that those two guys plus Andrews are going to make up the bulk of all the scoring on that team, like that's so limited. And with Malcolm Brown being Marquise Brown being banged up and potentially not playing in this game, that would make, if that happens, that makes Mark Andrews almost a lock play for me across the board. I don't typically go 100% on anybody, but like he's going to be really high. I'm going to be way overweight on him than most of my tight ends. So if Brown doesn't play, Brown plays, then I'll probably be a little bit less interested there. But I like the Jackson and stacking it up on the other side. And a guy that nobody's talking about, everybody was heavy on him last week. And he's a chalk last week, is Auden Tate, and nobody's talking about him. Everybody's like, okay, Tyler Boyd's the obvious play there. And I think he's going to have a good amount of ownership just because of that. But I have no problem at all going back to Auden Tate. I mean, he didn't do great last week. He got four or five catches, I think, and a touchdown to save the day. But like, I don't really want that. I mean, unless he's in my cash lineup, like that's not good enough for a GPP. But I don't also think that was the perfect situation. I mean, they were going up against Arizona, which, I mean, that's good. That's a good situation for him, but it just didn't work out that well. And I think that he could see a higher target threshold this week and could go off against Baltimore here. So I like that option a lot. They just don't have, like, so many people banged up on that team. There's really just Boyd and Tate. Eifert's not really even playing. He's not running routes. It's, he was like 13% snap share last week. It was terrible. So what are your thoughts here on this game? That's kind of like my take on it.
I'm in the same boat as you.
I'm in the same boat as you. I think Lamar Jackson with a stack with
Ingram is a very
viable situation because of the fact that Lamar Jackson can run. Him and Ingram could feasibly have all the touchdowns, either by Lamar running and Ingram running in to the end zone, or short passes to Andrews in this. So they could conceivably have all the touchdowns and
really rack up a score. I could see Lamar
I could see Lamar getting 30, 35 in this game, and Ingram pushing that 25 plus DK point level. And it becomes a great play on FanDuel as well, because Ingram is a touchdown machine in FanDuel with that half PPR touchdown play that they become that much greater of a play for that format. But on DraftKings, we like that.
He's a little bit less valuable because he's so touchdown dependent. I can see him easily getting 100 yards plus here, but he really needs that at least one touchdown, if not two, to make value on DraftKings, which is hard to like rely on from any running back. But I'll have my share of the combo there, and then just run it without. If I did run Mark Ingram by himself, I like him stacked up with Dalton. There's no reason, if you're going to be high on the pass catchers for Cincinnati, might as well get Dalton super cheap. He's shown that he has a decent ceiling when he's throwing a lot and he can connect. He doesn't have Ross playing. He doesn't really have, but if they're going to have to air it out, they're not going to be able to run too heavily against this. The Baltimore team has shown that they can, be pretty good against the run. But Mixon has a chance, we saw Chubb break one. We saw Kansas City do pretty good against them. If they pass it out to him in the flat and he breaks one, it only takes one 70-yard run to make a huge day for a guy like Mixon. So I don't hate him. I'm not really targeting that, but he'll definitely be low owned.
Mixon's going to make my lineups.
I'm looking at Baltimore's defense, and I see some significant holes in their defense, not only on the pass side but on the run side. And no one is talking about Mixon right now. Mixon could win the Millie. He could be in that Millie winner.
And that does not surprise me.
And that does not surprise me one bit. You can have a viable stack of him and Tate, or him and
another part of the passing game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially with Dalton,
he becomes very viable.
I think that he's actually probably, and I actually wrote this down, I think just in line with what you're saying, I think that that Mixon's an even better play in conjunction with one of those receiving options if you're doing a mini stack, or even just loading up on the whole Cincinnati offense. Because if he's doing well, that means that entire offense is probably doing really well in conjunction, and they're leaning more towards the run. But I also have an injury update on the Baltimore side. Patrick, and I'll butcher the name, Onwuasor, which is their, I think their middle linebacker for Baltimore, is going to be probably out. He's DNP'd all week. He's questionable as of today. And he makes a significant amount of tackles in that defense for the linebacker side of the things. So I don't know who's filling in there, but I think that hole does create some opportunities on the run that aren't there normally. So
that's going to open up Mixon a lot.
It's going to
make him much more.
It's going to make him much more of a viable play.
The other thing I'll mention here is if Marquise Brown does not play, I think that it's worth taking a few shots on Boykin. The guy's super skilled. He's 4.4 speed, 6'4", 220. He's a tough matchup kind of guy. And I think he, even with Kirkpatrick covering him, I think that's a hard matchup there. So I think he's worth. They run right now. They run Seth Roberts and Sneed as the kind of like other two guys that like get most of the snaps. Um, and Brown's kind of like their speedster, do everything kind of guy. But it doesn't seem like if Brown's out, then it seems like an easy slot in for Boykin to just slide into that role. And play that. And they may decide to play more two tight end sets and stuff like that if since there's kind of if that happens. So we might see a bit more of whoever Hurst, I guess, and whoever their other tight end is. But yeah, I kind of think that Boykin gets a bit more of that equity upside to him, and he's the kind of guy that can break those big plays wide open. So I don't mind it. Cincinnati has shown that they can protect the pass a bit better, but I still think what we're projecting out at about 250 passing yards for Baltimore. So that's a lot considering how limited the Baltimore team throws the ball. So, like that's going to go to somebody, and it's probably going to be Andrews and one of those other guys. And I think Boykin is probably the guy that's got the best chance. Now, if Brown plays, he's the clear play, and that's going to be sort of a more chalky play. But
another thing is that the D line on Baltimore doesn't put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. So that's going to help Dalton a lot. And that goes into the favor of pairing Dalton with a Mixon. He can dump it off. And Mixon's a great pass catching running back, or even an Auden Tate or a Boyd. That makes it a much more viable situation there. I think Baltimore has this stigma that they are a great defense, but with the injuries, earlier notated earlier, they're becoming more and more susceptible.
They're also a really young defense. Like most of those players are new, and somewhat inexperienced. They're talented, but with that youth comes mistakes. And it just takes one or two to break a game wide open. And we've seen Cincinnati do that. Even against San Francisco, they've put up good fantasy numbers. Against a solid defense. And I would say San Francisco is far and above better defense than Baltimore. So there's definitely fantasy goodness here. I don't know why it's not more popular. I mean, it's got a 48 over under total. It's not like it's a low scoring type game. So I'm happy about that. And like, let's, let the Army like load up on these guys and take advantage of it. So this was one of 3 games that I'm probably going to be heavily invested in this weekend. I'm really kind of narrowing my pool down to 3 games with like a couple pieces of a couple other games, but this game is going to take up probably a third of my player pool or my lineups.
Yeah, and you were right on.
When they played Cleveland too. When you rostered Chubb, though it didn't get you the KOTB qualifier ticket, but you were on that play.
That was such a great play.
And that was such a great play.
Yeah, he was super low. He was super low.
And I commend you on that one
too. I was happy about that, but unfortunately the late afternoon games blew up, and Godwin with his 40-point day just is what obliterated me. But whatever. What are you gonna do? All right, let's move on. So we can get through some of this stuff. Next game I got is Seattle at Cleveland. I'll let you go first on this one. I don't have too much here on the way of kind of off chalky plays, but I'll say that I'm not a heavy Seattle kind of guy. They've done good and they've burned me in the past, especially when Russell went off for 40-something points. But, those are going to be weeks that I'm not going to be heavily invested. So, and I got burned by Carson too. So I've been on the wrong side of that equation.
On Seattle side, Disley is going to be in play. I think Disley's a great play.
I think Disley's a great play this week.
Looking at Cleveland, I see that
they're middling around the
25 range on the tight end.
Their defense against tight ends.
They're in and around
the 20s to 25 for the quarterback. So Russell pairing with Disley here is going to be a nice matchup for them. On Cleveland side, what I'm seeing is I do like Chubb in this game, and I have been looking at
putting him in some of these lineups
because he is just slightly below a tier of the big guys. So our Elliott's, our Cooks,
he's 700 below Kamara.
And he's 700 below Kamara. And if Kamara's not going to play, Chubb, he may be the right pivot off of those guys at the top, and he could have a smash game. He had a smash game in a tough situation in Baltimore. But here it's looking like Seattle is not the Legion of Boom anymore by any stretch of the imagination. Plus, they're going on the road. And Seattle on the road has never been good. Outside of a few smash spots that Russell has had in the past.
But I do like Disley here.
But I do like Disley had a very low owned stack in week 3 with Russell with Lockett and Kamara.
It was supremely low.
It was supremely low. It was actually 8.56% across the entire millimeter slate. Which I don't know why more people weren't on Kamara on that, but they weren't. And it weighed in my benefit, but I could see Lockett and Disley with some Russell stacks being play here.
And I could see.
I have.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say I've been hearing a lot.
I've been hearing a lot of chatter on Odell,
how he could be in a great
spot, and he is in a great spot here.
But I want to see what his
ownership's going to be at Saturday night, come Sunday morning, to see if he's actually going to be able to meet that value. Even though he is at 6.8K, I still want to see if he's going to meet that value with this projection.
Yeah. And I've heard this game talked about a little bit, so I don't think it's going to be super low owned, but I think it's definitely one of a few games that are interesting that people are going to be stacking. It's funny because Cleveland, it's week to week. People are either, hating Cleveland or they're like, oh, they're not as bad or whatever. You kind of go back and forth between hate and mediocre. Nobody's really loving it. But Chubb being the one kind of interesting guy, I think he's got a rap for this more Derrick Henry type running back role, and he's really not. He is a do everything kind of running back. And if you look at what he's getting, 18 plus touches rushing a game, plus another 6 plus receptions, that's elite stud running back, and that kind of volume, I don't care. Every week he's playable in most matchups, unless up against the worst run defenses. So yeah, I have no problem playing Chubb, especially if he's going to be lower owned. The Chris Carson, he's hard to go back to just because it's just beating your head against the wall with him. And you think he's going to do good, and he's in a perfect matchup and whatever, and then he just doesn't do anything, or he fumbles and they bench him or whatever. But it's he's a very frustrating guy to play. I've got him ranked right now. I have him ranked at, them being projected at the 4th best rushing offense this week, as far as the matchup goes. So, how do you not play the guy that gets all the touches, that is expected to get 140 plus rushing yards in that game, and yeah, Russell's probably going to take 20 or 30 of those himself. The rest of those are going to Carson probably. And unless something happens, he probably is an okay play. It makes me feel a little gross to go back to him to play again, and I think a lot of people are going to feel that way, which is going to keep his ownership down in a good matchup. So you kind of feel like you have to play him a bit. I don't know what my ownership's going to be on him, but I will have some stake in this game. I'm not going to probably end up stacking this game too much. I may have one or two lineups with Russell in it, but for the most part, I'm going to be doing mini stacks here. Just picking off players and just playing them solo or playing them like a Chubb Landry, Chubb Odell kind of thing in conjunction with one of my other stacks. That's kind of how I'm taking it. But I like the Disley call. Lockett's a guy that I think has a potential to go off every week. And the other play here that if you're looking at it, I think you got to maybe look at DK Metcalf. He hasn't really done much, but he's getting a lot of red zone targets, which is interesting. He hasn't caught any of them, but he's getting targeted and looked at in the end zone just due to his kind of like size and uh, it's. I think at one point he's gonna he's gonna like convert that. I don't know how much like actual equity that's gonna turn into, just because he's like he still has to get a decent amount of yards and catches to make that into a good GPP play. But like he's possible. You could catch it, one or two touchdowns plus 5 or 6 catches in a game, and that's going to be maybe 20 plus points. So if a guy like him can do that, then he's worth having in your lineup. I kind of like the guys that I feel a bit more confident that are going to go break big plays when I'm playing GPPs, just because especially if you're chasing qualifiers, getting 15 points from a wide receiver is not good enough. You got to get 25, and I want the guys that are going to break the 70-yard catches for touchdowns and have more than 6 catches in a game, kind of thing. And I'm not sure that DK is one of those guys, but maybe he is.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I'm with you on that. I'm not 100% positive if he's going to be able to do that or not.
He's had
some
good
rapport
with Wilson when he's
in there. But what I am looking at is Cleveland defense over the middle
is ranked about
20th over the middle, and they're ranked just at 20th on short passes. Lockett and Disley become
a very viable
stack with Russell with that in mind.
And you can
even have them if you want and you believe that this game's going to shoot out. You could have a onslaught
in it, and you
could
run it back with Odell,
and you could run it back with Odell, or you could run it back with Chubb, and that would be a great stack to have, and it would be very low owned.
That game stack.
That game
I'm just
stack.
looking at ownership projections right now. I'm bringing up Research Station and see what they're currently running at. Let's just take a look. We've got Cleveland and wide receivers. So right now, ownership on Odell right now we're projecting at 13.6. It's a bit higher than I'd like it to be. But and Landry around 6. And then let's see what Chubb is running in at. I
think I got him at 10.4.
10.4.
I got him at 10.4.
Yeah.
10.4
I got Disley at 7.8.
I got Disley at 7.8.
And then Lockett at 6.89.
And then Lockett at 6.89.
And Russell at 5.6.
Yeah. I kind of feel like Chubb's going to come in under that 10.4, to be honest, at his price point, 7,800. I think a lot of people are going to be playing the guys around him more. They just, look more attractive. But
yeah,
pivot on this game. If you didn't really want to roster Odell, if you don't think Odell's going to go off in this game, he may not. I mean, it's Odell Beckham. He may not. I mean, it's Odell Beckham. He's put up duds before at rates. Jarvis Landry at 6%. Is Jarvis Landry at 6% ownership projected rate?
Landry's been solid from a PPR perspective. He's definitely more of a DraftKings play, but I mean, he's a guy that's going to get you a good floor, and he's got the potential to break one. I'm a Miami fan. I hate to say it, like, because like he's the worst team in the NFL right now, but you gotta stick with him. But Landry, he's always been that kind of slot guy, and he catches a lot of passes, and he's super talented receiver as far as catching goes, but he also tends to fall down a lot right when he catches the ball, which is really just frustrating. I know you're protecting yourself in the middle of the field when you catch the ball and you don't want to get creamed, but it's just like, damn, turn, boy, and run.
I'm so with you. I'm so with you. I mean, Baker's got 1,300. Baker's got 1,300 air yards right now. Let's see how many Odell's got of that. Odell's at 518 of those air yards, and Jarvis is at 427. He's getting there. He's getting there. He could put up a very good game just by receptions, yardage, and receptions alone.
Well, let's move on. I think we've talked, mostly about that. I'm not going to be playing Baker this week, so not the kind of play I want to play. I think you could make a case for maybe one of these two defenses, to be honest. But I really just don't know that you want to go there. I think this is going to just be one of those middling kind of games where like 2020 and there's some fantasy goodness in it, but it's not like a blow up kind of game. It's just what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. All right, moving on. Big game of the week.
On that.
Kansas City and Houston. At Kansas City. I mean, I don't know if we can really talk about off chalk plays here, but because this is going to be chalk city. I mean, the off chalk plays are going to be clearly the parts that people aren't going to want to play, and the ones that are going to be a little uglier to play, like playing Hyde and Duke Johnson, and really even maybe some of the Kansas City rushing side of the ball. But they're also like the not good plays to play. To be honest, I don't. Right. I think Hyde has maybe a better chance rushing wise than the Kansas City. I don't like playing any of these Kansas City. I've heard people talking about playing Damian Williams and or McCoy, in this game, and I just like Houston run defense, rushing defense is like good. It's not like something I want to target. Like they're projected right now to get 74 rushing yards in that game, and Kansas City passes like 75% of the time. I don't understand why I want to play a guy that's only going to be involved in 30% of the snaps and up against a pretty good run defense. It's not a play that I'm going to play. I may have a couple shares of ownership, but I'm not going to be heavy owned on that play.
I'll probably have one share, if any, one share. I'll be less than 5% on him.
Kansas City running.
On that Kansas City
the big news here, I guess,
it'll be
is if Tyreek and or Watkins play or not. I think is what everybody's kind of waiting on to see how they're going to play this game, which is interesting because what happens in these situations, and this is actually how I qualified for one of my King of the Beach wins, was due to a late active. I think it was Green Bay, and I can't remember who it was. I think it was Green Bay. I played the guy who was like a late active, kind of guy, and it was less than an hour before the game started, and I just was went through and swapped out every single guy I had. I think I was playing Cobb, and I put in somebody else, whoever it was, that was the other option. And
Wasn't it
wasn't
Adams?
Devontae. It was I don't remember, and it wasn't MVS wasn't around, and I can't remember who it was. Maybe it wasn't Geronimo either. Like I can't remember who the guys were. But anyways, I played the guy, and he was a late deal, and he went off. He got like a 30-point game, and he was like 0.05% owned, something ridiculous. And it just like I just like shot up the boards because of it. But in situations where it's like game time decisions and there's like a bunch of like options like this, and Green Bay's kind of like that same situation where there's tons of passing options usually. Being on the right guy after the news comes out is kind of like critical. And so like this is one of those things where you're gonna have to make alterations to your lineups kind of last minute if something happens, and just go with it because take a stand on it and say like, okay, I'm cool if last week I played Watkins a bunch and it burned me. Like he like just was like, okay, whatever. He's out of the game right away. So like all those lineups are dead. But but yeah, I mean, like let's say what's the news right now on Tyreek? Is he? They think he's gonna play? Is it? I know they're both kind of questionable. I think it's less likely that Watkins plays because I don't think he's practiced at all. I think Tyreek's practiced, is what I've seen. But what I'll say here is, Kelsey's kind of like a pretty good option every week. He's gonna garner his normal ownership here, I think. And then I like Hardman. I think he's been on the wrong side of having a blow up game a few times. I've seen him miss a few deep passes, or actually not him miss, but Mahomes miss him just a touch. It's hard to overthrow a guy with his kind of speed, but Mahomes has got an arm, man. He can. I don't know if you ever saw that video of him throwing the football out of the stadium, but Jesus Christ, the guy can chunk it. But I mean, if they can connect on even one of those passes, like Hardman can really pay off some huge games. So I like him. He's a little bit less on my radar if either Tyreek or Watkins play. I think he's a little bit better if Watkins plays. If Tyreek plays, I'm going to be pretty off of him, and be more on Tyreek. But these guys are all kind of like roll the dice, and I think everybody's kind of in that same boat of like you're going to have to spread it out, and which I think is going to keep the ownership down on all of them because people are going to be spreading their money out on them. And even though this game is going to stack up and people will have two or even three of these guys, it's a little bit less obvious than the teams with like a single like Adam Thielen kind of situation where it's one of two guys, and you're going to probably get like a 70-30 split of ownership on those two. This is more kind of like, I could see these guys being pretty evenly across the board between Hardman, Robinson, and Pringle. If that's how it ends up playing out.
Yeah. Roto World is showing that Sammy Watkins is doubtful for Week 6, and Tyreek Hill is game decision. I heard our fearless leader earlier in the day in a pod that he did with Marley. That Mahomes has been going to he's been lighting it up with a guy every week, and it's a different guy every week. And Kelsey has yet to blow up. And ownership is in and around 22% right now on the on the Dom station. For Kelsey, I could see Kelsey having obliterates the slate, and if you don't have him, you're not going to do anything. Do you need to actually have Mahomes with him? It would be very viable. Kelsey can do it on his own too. We've seen that before with him. But he's a monster. He's a monster.
I mean, he's obviously not an off-talk play here, but certainly I think that can happen every week. It's tough to pay up for his price every week. I mean, I've been on him heavy every week, thinking that same thing, like, oh, this is Kelsey's week, and he's been close, but he just hasn't quite connected. But yeah, I could definitely see that happening. I guess we're neglecting the other side of the ball, the other side of this game, which is also just as interesting to play. And I think that there's a few other lower ownership plays over there. Obviously, Hopkins and Fuller are going to be the heavy guys to go with. I think even with the kind of contrarian-minded industry, I think there's going to be a decent amount of people going back to Fuller. I would normally say if they were playing somebody other than Kansas City, people would probably jump off that bandwagon to say, oh, he's not going to have another 40, 50-point game or whatever it was, and get onto Hopkins more. But in this particular scenario, I think they're going to both be pretty highly owned just because, like, they're playing Kansas City. So, Cooties, I think Stills is probably going to not play. So that elevates my interest in Cutie a bit more, or Cootie, I would pronounce it. So I like him. I think he's definitely going to be. Let's see what he's going to be. What we're projecting out for him. Let's see. Houston. So 3.3%. That doesn't seem right, but we got Hopkins at 19, and we don't have anything on Fuller yet, so it's interesting. We'll see how that develops tomorrow, but 3.3%. I like Cootie. One thing that I'll kind of warn against there is that he only plays about half the snaps because they run a lot of two tight end sets in Houston, which is kind of new. So I think you could make a case for one of the tight ends, Atkins maybe. I'm not quite sure if those guys would pay off a big enough pay to kind of rival the other good tight end options on there, but I think that they're potentially cash viable plays. They're definitely going to be lower owned plays. So there's always a chance that one of those guys gets a couple catches and a couple touchdowns. Just not enough volume there, I think, to put up a big number. What are your thoughts on Cootie and the tight ends for Houston?
I like Cootie. I like Cootie at 3.3%. It could get you that low ownership and can help you to game stack this a little bit easier with Kelsey and Mahomes or Watson, Nuke and Fuller. Get you off a Fuller. Get you on a lower owned play. I'm not on the tight ends in the game. I think it's a low owned play that could go off the two tight end sets that Houston run. I'm just not on them in this game. I'm gonna probably keep a really tight core on tight ends this week, and Kelsey will be one of my higher owners this week. I will have significant ownership in a later game that we'll talk about.
Yeah,
that's going to be played on the West Coast.
I think I know who you're talking about. We'll get to that. What about and this is not going to be very attractive one on the running side. So right now I've got Houston projected as the third ranked rushing offense due to the matchup at 150 yards rushing in this game. Now we have to assume that Watson's going to take 30 to 40 of those rushing yards, which is kind of like his in this game. I think we will see that probably on both sides of the ball. I don't know about Mahomes running as much with his kind of maybe bummed up ankle, but if he's good to go, we'll see probably about 30 or so yards from both of these guys. But that still leaves a good 120 or so for the combo running of Hyde and Duke, and Hyde's getting like 20 touches a game. He just doesn't catch any passes, which is like the DraftKings like hated thing for playing a running back that doesn't catch any balls. But
yeah, and this game could play similarly to how it played out with a very similar type quarterback in Lamar Jackson when Baltimore went to Kansas City.
Everyone thought it was going to be a shootout game.
With passing, but it turned out to be that Ingram beasted.
Well, he got all the touchdowns.
Hyde is a very similar running back.
Got all the touchdowns.
Yeah.
I think he had 100 yards rushing in that game, but just barely.
Right. And he's similar to Ingram.
He's similar to Ingram. He's not as good as a pass catching back as Ingram, even though Ingram is not all that great in the pass catching realm of things. But he could, if they could get the ball down there, and if they can't get the ball into Nuke and
Fuller in the end zone down in the
inside the 5, they could give it to Hyde, and he could vulture some touchdowns in this game, similar to what Ingram did. And that 7.5% ownership that the Dom station has him projected at right now, it could be a
very contrarian
play that goes off for you.
On the other side.
On the other side,
I was going to just say, let me just throw this back at you and just see what you think here, because I dug in a little bit on this Houston run side last week and this week, and I got burned. I think it was last week or the week before. I played a little bit of Duke Johnson, and I'm just really frustrated with Houston not using him more, because he's a more efficient runner than Hyde. Just like he's getting like 7 yards per carry when he's actually in there playing. I don't know why they're not using him more, but I did notice, though, in digging in a little bit, that when Houston is trailing, the running back split shifts a bit more in Duke's favor, as opposed to when they're in the heavy lead. And that just makes sense, right? Like they're going to pound Hyde when when they're off to a lead, and it's not a huge shift. It's about a 60-40 split when they're leading to Hyde, and it's about a 60-40 split to Duke when they're trailing by a bit. So it's a small sample so far this year, and I don't know how much to really look into that or not, but they could be trailing most of this game, depending on how quickly Kansas City gets out and shoots. I can see it going both ways, so I don't really know that they're going to be trailing in this game. It could go either way, depending on who gets out first. But we have to assume, based off the Vegas line, Kansas City's favored here by like 5.5, 6 points, that they're going to be leading by a touchdown or so, and that tells me that Houston may bring in Duke more than Hyde in this game. So what's your thoughts there? I mean, he's going to be super low owned.
He's going to be super low owned, and
I'm in total agreement with you. He is a good pass catching back. When he came out of Miami, Cleveland drafted him because he was such a great pass catching back.
They just never utilized him.
Never understanding why he had such a stigma up in Cleveland. But they didn't like him at all. And he was
up there,
spending time with Crowell up there.
But
he is a good pass catching back. He is a good pass catching back, and if they do get down by a touchdown or 10 points in this game, they're going to have to go to him more, and then they're going to have to go to Nuke more because Nuke is their go-to guy. He is the man on that offense. I know Fuller put up a whole hell of a lot of DK points last week, and with 56 plus, but Fuller's not new. Nuke does special things on the field that not too many wide receivers can do. And I think if they get down 7 to 10 points, it's going to be a Watson show to Nuke as much as possible, and then they're going to try to dump it off to Duke. In the pass game as well, with the pass catching back, and then after that.
Yeah. I mean, Nuke's going to come in around 19. He's probably going to be even higher than 19% ownership is what we're projecting right now, but I'd say he's probably going to come in even higher than that, even at his price point. So he's going to be heavily owned, and I'm 100%. This is the one of the other three games that I'm stacking. I mean, everybody's stacking this game, so it's not like this is like a non-obvious play. Right? Everybody every week, Kansas City, which is weird because they played Detroit, and I was on Stafford and Galladay and stuff like that. It was really not that heavily owned, which is odd for anybody playing Kansas City. So that was that same week that Chubb went off, and I had was sitting there in good spot, but I think that this week it's not going to be that way. Everybody loves Houston, everybody loves Kansas City. This is touted as going to be like two teams just going back and forth. So there, I think if you can find some low ownership in this game,
it's one of the highest projected games.
There's some value there. And yeah, Duke and Hyde right now we're projecting close to the same, 6 and 7% ownership. But I think Duke's probably going to be a bit lower than that with Hyde in there. I think that people have been talking a bit more about Hyde just because of his just the amount of volume he's been getting recently. But I like on DraftKings, I like Duke Johnson just for the pass catching upside there, but really only if I think they're going to fall behind. If they're not, if I think that Houston's actually going to lead this game, which I don't, then I would not probably have Duke, and I probably going to only have a small amount of Hyde in that case too. Just not quite sure how well he's going to do. He's going to get you a couple touchdowns to make value there, and that can happen. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think in this game, I think the one off chalk play that could really it could be a winning play. It could be a winning play. When you look at it, Minnesota's coming in as a defense at 2.6K on DK. Last of the Chiefs defense. And what we've known in cerns that have been projected by Vegas as being high projection, where all the ownership is in this game is on the offense. Look on the other side of the ball, the defense. Right now the Dom station has them at 1-2% ownership. If that holds true, and you have 10%, you could even have like 10% of your lineups. If you have 20 lineups, that's only 2 lineups with them. At 2.5K, that opens up a lot of salary for you to be able to get to some of these studs like Julio, Michael Thomas, or Cooper Kupp on the West Coast, Cooper Kupp with the late hammer. This will help you get there. And if they do have a good game where they do intercept Deshaun Watson once, twice, they're going to pay off that 2.5K. And at 1-2% ownership, you're going to start scaling those leaderboards more and more with every play that they play. Seen it happen. I had it in week 17 of the 2018 season. I had the defense for the Chiefs, and I played 6 in the Millie Maker for them, and they were very low owned. They were less than 1% that week.
Yeah, and in these particular games, it's not bad to have with these high scoring affairs, it's not bad to have the defense with either of the quarterbacks or their pass catchers. We've seen where in these high scoring games the defense can be the best defense or a high scoring defense and still produce multiple high point opposing players to that. So there's no problem playing Hopkins and or Fuller with the Kansas City defense here. I mean, we saw it last night, right, with New England. Like Golden Tate still had a big game, and New England. What I don't even know what they put up. I have their defense in season long, but it's like 30 something points. It was ridiculous. But like yeah, I mean, the quarterback didn't do great because he threw 3 picks and didn't hit some numbers that he needed to pay off. But on that side, but I think it's a little bit less likely that you want to play the quarterback against the opposing defense. But certainly you can play Mahomes with his own defense or Watkins even with his own defense. I mean, both teams have shown that they throw interceptions, right? Like they're quarterbacks in the league. They have been prone to making mistakes, and Kansas City is one of those defenses that has corners that like to try to make big plays, especially McCourty, that likes to jump those routes, and that either has one of two effects. One, he picks them off and takes it to the house, or two, he misses it and Hopkins gets it and takes it to the house. So it's
so why
I like the KC defense is that Houston has given up
18 sacks on the year.
18 sacks on the year, and so Watson has been sacked 18 times.
That's a lot.
That's a lot
way too long.
on this guy.
He sure does, and
KC is in the they're a middling defense in terms of sacks that they've gotten. I mean, they've 11 sacks on the year. They can get to the quarterback. But the stack that I absolutely love in this game, and I'll have a lot of it, is the KC defense with Kelsey. Through research that I've done on all the Millie Maker lineups, the tight end and defense that combination has paid off in the winning Millie Maker lineups more often than it, with a running back combination or in the wide receiver combination with the defense's second to the tight end. So I absolutely love that stack, and I'll have a lot of it this weekend.
Like that call. All right, cool. All right, anything else from this game we want to touch on before we move on?
I think we've nailed this one.
I mean, obviously there's a ton of obvious plays here, but I think there's a few. That last mention, I think, is a really interesting way to take it. So I like it, especially you talk about getting a silly for the millie. I don't think it's that silly. So all right, at Jacksonville, New Orleans game here. I like a few pieces of this game. Not a game I'm stacking necessarily heavily, but there are some parts of this game that do look interesting. None of them, I don't think any of them are going to be that far off chalk, though. Aside from maybe, and to be honest, I don't even think this is going to be off chalk, Westbrook, because I've heard his name in several podcasts and stuff like that. And unfortunately, he was a guy that was popping for me in some of my projection numbers and stuff like that, and early on in the week. And then I started hearing everybody talking about it, and I'm like, God dang it! I hate when that happens. Because it does two things. One, it confirms that I'm like, it's probably a good play. I mean, I'm probably going to play it because other smart people are telling me that they also think it's a good play. But I hate that everybody's talking about it because I think it's going to increase the ownership to like an unhealthy GPP amount for him. So I'm probably going to go back a little bit and play a bit more just like even split between DJ, Chark, and Westbrook, when I would have been maybe a little bit more heavily owned on just Westbrook straight up. But On the other side of it, Michael Thomas, I think, is a play pretty much every week that you can go to. He's not in the best situation passing wise here, but um, I'm not sure actually. He might actually. Let's see what his projections are at. But go ahead and give me your take on that. Those are really my only like call outs here on this. I'm not heavy on the tight ends here. I'm not a Cook believer or anything like that. So
Yeah, I'm not a believer in them either.
Yeah, I'm not a believer in them
I think
either.
Thomas is a good play in this.
I think Thomas is a good play in this. I see in the Dom station we're at 8.43% of his ownership projected
dude like
for
him,
Thomas.
So I
Yeah.
like that. I like that play.
Yeah,
That's a good play.
that's a good play.
If you really want to pair him with
if you really want to pair him with Bridgewater,
Nope.
go ahead.
I'm not on that stack.
I'm not on that stack.
I think it would be.
And I don't. I think it would be probably you would be the only one if you wanted. If someone wanted to do it.
Bridgewater was in the
Yeah,
millie last week, but
Bridgewater was in the millie last week.
I mean,
but
I'd rather take Minshew
it was-
with one or two of his guys and bring it back with Thomas.
yeah. I'm agreeing with you on that.
I'm
even if
agreeing
Westbrook
with
is high
you on that. Even if Westbrook is high owned,
Thomas is going to stay at less than 9%
Thomas is going to stay at less than 9% ownership.
right there.
That's a great.
Yeah, everybody's going to bring
right
it back
there
with
him.
Kamara. I mean, Kamara's in a good smash spot here, and I think I'm going to have heavy ownership in him across my slate, but he's not going to be low owned, I don't think.
No, I don't think he's going to be low owned.
No, I don't think he's going to be low owned, but the injury tag could help that.
Yeah, I did see that he
ownership.
Came up on the injury report there, but I didn't think it was serious.
He's definitely in the Q tag, and he's at 10%.
He's definitely in the Q tag, and he's at 10% ownership projection right now.
Less than Dalvin Cook.
That's less than Dalvin Cook, and that's less than David Johnson.
Less than Elliott.
Significantly less than Elliott. I will have a lot
I think he's in a great
of
spot.
Kamara this week. I think
it's
he's
really
in a great spot.
Kind of thought that he'd be a bit higher than that, to be honest. But yeah, I'm not.
I think he would if.
Yeah,
I think he would.
I'm not really as high as everybody else is on Zeke this week, so I don't mind putting all my ownership in Kamara instead of Zeke. So.
I think Kamara would be higher owned.
I think Kamara would be higher owned if
quarterback in this game.
Drew Brees was the quarterback in this game.
I think
because
I think because Bridgewater is
the quarterback. I think because Bridgewater is the quarterback.
Ownership on him.
I mean,
depressing the ownership on him.
He had a massive game with Bridgewater a couple weeks ago. Like, I mean, he's produced like good games, and he's super talented. Just I want to play the best athlete on the field whenever I get a chance, and like there's a ton of talent in this particular game with athletes, and it's not at the quarterback. Like, I don't care who the quarterbacks are. Minshew, he's been serviceable quarterback, and Bridgewater, he's been okay, but like, I don't care about the quarterbacks. Like, but the talent on the receiving and the running back side is good, like really good. So like, they're gonna make plays. You get them the ball. It doesn't matter who's throwing it to them, or it's not hard to throw a ball 2 feet to Kamara in the backfield and let him break one for 30.
Yeah, his yak is crazy.
Yeah, his yak is crazy. And
I wrote it up after week 3.
He's probably one of my after
CMC probably my favorite.
CMC probably my favorite running back.
Let me ask you this.
CMC is just.
I totally agree. Kamara's I drafted him in season long, and if you had to pick, and this is actually a legit season long question. I don't want to get off script here, but I have in season long. I've got Kamara, Mark Ingram, Cook, and Dalvin Cook and Leonard Fournette are my 4 running backs. Stacked. Who do you play?
Damn.
3, right? You got to play 3, right? And I'm always on the wrong side of the Leonard Fournette decision. Like, I played him first few weeks, and I'm like, I'm done with you. I bench him, and then Ingram's going off, so I put Ingram in, and then now he's so frustrating, right? But Ingram's in a smash spot, right? You got to play him over Fournette, and like you're not benching Dalvin even in a bad matchup, and you're not. And I really don't ever want to bench Kamara. So like, I don't know. Hashtag like winning team problems, right?
Yeah,
I think I got to go with Ingram.
Yeah, I think I got to go with Ingram, Fournette, or Ingram, Cook, and
I would agree.
Kamara on
That's
that
what
one.
I have. But
Fournette's in a spot in this game. So. Fournette is also in a good spot.
So if we look at Fournette,
so that's a toughie.
He's coming in at 20+% ownership, which is crazy considering that he's in a game with Kamara, and I've got New Orleans projected at a higher yardage from a rushing projection than Jacksonville in this particular matchup. They're ranked 6th as opposed to Jacksonville at 11th from a rushing. They're both in good spots. Like these are both plus side rushing opportunities. New Orleans has kind of been like touted at a better rush defense than pass defense. But they're like the numbers really just don't stack up that way. Like they've given up a good amount. Like let me see what the ranking is, but right now we're projecting Jacksonville at 125 rushing yards and 256 passing. So that's a good amount of volume there, and especially with Fournette playing. I mean, he's going to get ownership because of the 98% snap rate that he gets. Like he's just like the only guy, right? So, and he's produced the last couple weeks with that. First few weeks, not so much, even though he was getting the same amount of play. So something kind of finally connected. He finally, got into the end zone and started making those things happen. But I think that can happen every week. I think he's a good play this week. I'm going to be playing him, but he's unfortunately not going to be very low owned.
No, and I think he's going to be more of a better cash game play this week. Right now my cash game has 6K running backs in it. We'll see how that rolls before lock. But I think he's going to be a viable cash game play. I think a lot of people are going to roll that way with 3 running backs because they can't get to the Cook and the Elliott's at 8.5K and 8.4K. Kamara is he's going to be a great GPP play. I'm not going to play him in cash, but I think a lot of people are going to have that same type of build mentality in cash this week. Is that they want the 6K guys in there. I mean, it's not hard to discern the 6K guys I'm talking about. You got your Bells, you got Fournette, and then you got Ingram. I mean, those guys are going to be pretty much in almost everyone's cash game this week. What's going to make it different is who you are going to roster for wide receivers.
I think there's a lot of options up there at the top, and you certainly can differentiate a little bit even in your cash lineups with some of these other guys. Like I really personally I don't have any problem playing Kamara in cash any week really, but this week included. I mean Jacksonville's a lot better matchup against with the running back against them than it is on the other side. Like I prefer Kamara much more over Fournette. I mean, if you look at our power rankings, I was just looking at it just to see, and rushing numbers wise, like yardage wise, they rank pretty high, like around a 10th or 11th at 125 yards. But if you look at the opposing defense, New Orleans is better against the rush than they are against the defense. Not significantly, but a decent amount. Rushing yardage wise, so they're limiting on average against opponents 24 yards less rushing than those teams normally would score. And in scenarios like that, I'm not huge on like going after that heavily. Like it doesn't feel good trying to go upstream essentially when you're working on. I like seeing those negative numbers. when I'm targeting a running back against a particular defense. But sometimes those, it really just takes a couple broken plays to make those guys nights. So, I don't hate the play because of the volume that Fournette gets. But we're getting a bit off since he's pretty chalky. I think the clear play here, if we're talking off chalk, is Kamara, because like at 10%, that's certainly off chalk. And he's a stud play. I think Michael Thomas is just as good a play. And you can run back those stacks if you're going to do a stack here with either one of those guys coming back.
Yeah, no, if Lattimore is going to be shadowing Shark, DJ Shark. It's going to be a tough matchup for Shark. That's why a lot of people. And I think that's why a lot of people are talking up Westbrook this week.
Yeah, I've been wrong on DJ Shark with matchups though in these last few games too. He seems like he kind of beats the matchups that you think would prevent him from producing. So he's just like this. Getting a lot of red zone looks. Yeah. He's a super talented dude. So I don't not want to play him because like the matchup looks kind of bad from a cornerback perspective, but we've also seen a Lattimore get beat by would-be not number one elite type wide receivers. He kind of like rises to the occasion and then falls to the like less known dudes, so like if he's going up against the DeAndre Hopkins or somebody like that, then like he plays better against these like super elites. But DJ Chark, are we going to put him into this like Hopkins arena yet? No, I don't think so. I mean, he's like top 5, I think one of the top receivers so far this year, but I don't think he's going to garner the kind of respect from Lattimore that he seems to kind of play to, that like respect level. I don't know. I might be reading too much into that.
Yeah. When he was at Ohio State, he did the same thing. He played up to the competition. The competition was bad. Your Illinois, and stuff like that in the Big Ten, your low-level Big Ten teams. He would play down to the competition. And he's always had that. But Eli Apple is a very beatable corner. He's going to be playing. Chris Conley could be in play there. But D.D. Westbrook probably has the best matchup in this game.
I love the volume. The volume there is great. So I think he. What was the percentage that he was coming in at? Jacksonville wide receivers.
We're talking about Westbrook.
I think he's going to be higher than what we probably are projecting right now, but let's see.
I think he was like.
Oh my God!
He was like
3. Yeah, there's no way that 3. I think he's going to. If he's at 2.9%, that's an easy play for me. We don't have a projection on DJ Chark yet, but I don't know. Maybe I always think that if I hear his guys' names a lot in like our podcast and other people's podcasts, Edge or whatever, they're gonna get higher ownership than some of these projections are showing, because a lot of people listen to these things, and we like to think that there's a huge population of dumb players out there that are just playing like the obvious plays, but there's at least 50% of the people playing, if not significantly more, are sharp people that are listening to all this, reading articles, and making the same kinds of plays. So I do feel like his ownership's going to come in higher than what we're currently projecting at. But we'll take a look tomorrow and see where he's sitting. But at 2.9, I love the play. Yeah, super good low ownership play. All right, cool. Let's move on. I think we're cranking through here. Let's Minnesota and Philly. At Minnesota.
I am. This game is a very good. DFS game in terms of stacking this one up. I love Cousins in this game. I love Ertz in this game. I'm going to be high on Diggs. I think the stigma around Diggs is just blown way out of proportion. And everybody's going to be like, I want all the Thielen I can get. Yeah, go for it. He had a great game last week. A lot more people are going to think the same way. I think Dalvin Cook is definitely a part of this game. On the other side, I think Wentz to Ertz stack in this game is a viable situation. Run it back with one of the three. You know, you can run it back with Cook. It's not the correlation is not as high as running it back with Diggs or Thielen, but it's a viable play.
Yeah, I agree. The part of this game that I'm having trouble with is the Philly side, and really the only option for me is Ertz. Maybe, and I know the geek hates Aguilar, but you know the really I'm really only interested in Ertz, but I think he's going to have a decent ownership just because he's Ertz, and if you were looking for a low ownership play on that side of the ball, I kind of prefer Aguilar from kind of from the slot there, and taking just kind of like a Minnesota's like they're just good defensively. Like they've been playing good, solid defense, but on both rushing and passing. They are sort of a funnel to the tight end type of team, so that's why I kind of like Ertz. But if there's any matchup on the board that is potential, I think it's maybe Aguilar from the slot. Taking a short pass to the house, but not huge fan of any side of that ball, and I'm really I've been on the wrong side of Wentz, with his good games too, and you can see him having a decent game here. I'm just not going to be on it. I love the Minnesota side. Dalvin Cook, Thielen, Diggs. These guys are all coming in at 10% or less, which is crazy. Diggs is super low owned at 4% or something right now. I like that. The nice thing about this game is who the clear options are. There's not any surprise third wide receiver guy that's going to go crazy. It's going to be one of these guys. So it's an easy game to pick players from, and I don't mind stacking it. I probably won't. The only stacks I'll have of this game are going to be Cousins with 1, 2, or 3 of the trio there, and bringing it back with Ertz. Those are pretty much the only stacks I'll run in this out of this game. But I probably won't have a high amount of those. I do like the game on the Minnesota side particularly. I've been a Kirk Cousins kind of chaser all year. He finally started producing a little bit last week, but I'm waiting for the 30+ point Kirk Cousins game that he has every year. A couple of those, he can put it together. I think it's less likely now with Dalvin Cook healthy and running as well as he is that'll happen, but he catches passes too, so maybe I get it on the right side of variance, and he catches the passes for the touchdown. So go ahead.
Yeah, the defenses are in play too. I mean, I'm not high on Philly away from home, but I think Minnesota is in play. I think we have him just over 10% ownership projected in the Dom station. But at 10%, that's still pretty good. I mean, we've seen some of these defenses owned at 20-25%, and they still produce a pretty good amount. But 2.6K, they just need in and around about 10 points, 12 points. that's an interception and a couple sacks and then got value. So
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll see.
I mean, Kirk Cousins coming in at
it's a good pairing with Cook.
3% is going to be super low on play there. I mean, you might have to barf a little bit in your mouth to play him, but I think he can produce. We have seen good ceiling games from him in the past, so it's been a while though.
He'll make my lineups.
I'll have him.
I'll
Let's
have
see
him.
here. Is there any other options? I don't really have any other plays here. I like either defense. I don't mind running. They'll probably be in my player pool, both sides of it, because they both can turn the ball over. But I think that this is sort of just I don't know. It doesn't look as attractive from a shootout perspective. So I could see the defense is doing pretty good here. I don't know what the weather.
And
did they play in a dome in Minnesota?
Yep, they sure do.
Yeah, I think they do.
Yep, they sure do.
Well, that would be pretty miserable having to play outside.
I
think Rudolph's out in this game.
Rudolph's out in this game, so
that's another piece of this puzzle that
help
for some of those
targets to Thielen and Diggs.
Rudolph's been useless all year though. He's gotten one target a game or something ridiculous. I don't even know what he used to be good. I don't know why they don't throw the ball. I mean, maybe it's Kirk Cousins, but Jesus, I don't know. I mean, he's been just like a blip. Anyhow, let's move on.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything else to talk about on that game. Washington at Miami, the Turd Bowl. My Miami team. Oh, jeez. I feel it's gonna be like a decade before I'm gonna get excited about my team again. All right. Well, what is there to talk about here? There's plenty of turd plays here, and probably a decent amount of lower ownership. Unfortunately, I think if you were wanting to play some plays from this game, they're all going to be higher owned than they should be because people are wanting to play this game just because of two terrible teams playing against each other, which really makes me not super interested in playing any of the people from this game at all. But let's talk about the news. Biggest news being that Washington coach Gruden was fired and new coach coming in saying that they want to just run the ball a ton. And what that means, I guess, for Adrian Peterson is to be seen. I mean, he's shown that he can actually be effective from a points perspective if he gets 20 plus touches in a game, but I don't really love it. I mean, Miami just loves giving up points to running backs, especially touchdowns. So you kind of have to put him in your pool, but he's kind of I really just don't like playing any of the guys from this team. Let's see what his ownership's going to be. It's probably going to be pretty low, but even with that news, any thoughts on Peterson or even Chris Thompson?
I was just thinking about
Chris Thompson. Actually,
he could be a pivot.
Off of Adrian Peterson in this game for half the ownership, which is probably not going to be that much ownership anyway. But
Thompson is a good play.
In terms of this because Miami they leak like a sieve in terms of their defense to pass catching running backs. 31st in the league. Straight up running backs. Non-pass catching running backs are 32nd in the league. So I mean, it's
one way or the other.
They're not a good defense against the run. They're not a good defense against the tight ends either. And if you're feeling very,
they're not a good defense against any position really right now. So it's roll the dice.
I was thinking, so I was thinking like Vernon Davis could be played, but you would have to be very highly risk oriented to play that. He's just not had a great year at all this year. One spot that he was supposed to smash, he didn't, and I think that was like maybe
Arizona, right?
Maybe 4.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's just not
I think if you're going to play a guy, any of the guys from this game, you've got to go with. You kind of have to sort of take a cue from how they like to play the football. Unfortunately, we don't really know much about what's going to change with Washington's coaching change here. Here's my take on it, because he comes in. I don't even know the interim head coach's name, but whatever. He comes out and he says that basically tells what his gameplay is going to be like. Hey, we just got to establish the run and run the ball, and we're going to do good if we can just get that going. I mean, what kind of I don't know what kind of schlub you have to be to come out and just say what your game plan is going to be if that's truly what you're going to do. Let's just go broadcast it and tell everybody what we're planning and hope that they plan against it. But let's take take it for granted that they actually go and do that. Sorry, the wife told me I'm being too loud. Sorry. Let's take it for granted that they're going to actually go do that, what they say that they're going to do, which I don't 100% believe yet at all. Then I think that you realistically play those guys, Adrian Peterson or Chris Thompson. They're both coming in at 2 point something %, so they're going to be low-owned plays. So you don't have to do much to be over the field on that if those end up being what the actual field plays. You can play, the McLarens and stuff like that. I think what you want to do though is sort of play this game like what we think the quarterbacks traditionally like to play and how they like to target their particular weapons, regardless of the plays called, because I think that that's going to be more what the outcome is going to be, rather than saying well, Miami's bad against this particular position a little bit more than they're bad against the wide receiver or the tight end, and so maybe we go with Adrian Peterson over Terry. But I think if you look at who, I think it's Case Keenum's going to be playing for the rest of the year now, but if you look at Keenum and who he likes to target and stuff like that, I think that those are probably going to be your better indicators of who to play than maybe what Miami's bad at, because it's really hard to pinpoint what they're worse at this point. I will say though, as a Miami fan, I have to at least call out that they do have at least one good cornerback that has been pretty good on the year, and he should actually be on McLaurin. I think he'll probably shadow him. I don't think that necessarily means that McLaurin doesn't have a good game, but it could limit sort of his potential ceiling a bit with Xavier Howard. He's shut down, not shut down, but limited the receivers he's been on so far this year. So that's the one little nugget that I would say about the Miami defense, is that they have that going for them. So I don't know, if you want to run some of the other Paul Richardsons and whatnot, then go for it. I'm not going to probably be on any of those plays, but there will be some fantasy.
Yeah, Richardson is a pivot off.
Richardson is a pivot off of
Richardson is a pivot off of
the likes of Muhammad Sanu at 4.5K.
He's definitely there.
He's definitely there.
He's a good play.
Is a good play.
I'm not going to play it, but
I'm not going to play it.
I've heard a lot about people wanting to play Preston Williams from Miami, and yeah, he's been pretty good this year.
Yeah.
And he's a talented dude, but one, Albert Wilson will be back. I've been trying to tell people in Slack and stuff like that. He does look like he's going to be playing in this game, and I think that's going to significantly impact Preston and Parker to some extent. Albert Wilson, he's actually a good receiver, and he and uh, Rosen likes him. He's a. I think that I think he's gonna be kind of an overlooked element of this team, and a lot of people are going to flock to Preston. And I think that it's got some bust potential there. That and if you want to be a believer in that, then I'd say, and you are willing to play Preston, then I'd say pivot and play Albert Wilson, or Parker. Really, either one of them are going to be significantly lower owned than Preston. Um, so but I like Albert Wilson as a GPP punt. If you're going to play one of those three guys, I like playing him in the bigger GPPs. But honestly, like I really just don't know that any of these guys can get to 25 points and what I want out of a receiver. So
yeah, I'm with you on that, and
I'm in the same
mindset as you are with this.
I think Wilson
could do the best out of all three of the
wide receivers there.
People are going to look at Josh Norman. And they're
people are going to look at Josh Norman and they're going to say, "Well, Josh Norman's good corner
about 5 years ago, but
about 5 years ago, but
it's not the way that he used to be.
It's not the way that he used to be."
But I think I'm going to stick with the cash side on this one.
I'm going to stick with the cash side on this one.
Roll this one too much.
Not really
GPPs.
roll this
Maybe
one too much in GPP. 5-10% ownership in some of these guys. Washington side, maybe I roll out a lineup with
Peterson and a
lineup with Thompson and see how it flies.
But the one guy that we
haven't touched on is Drake. I think Drake's in play here. Kenyon Drake.
Washington.
They're just as bad as Miami in terms of their defense too.
The rushing side
of the ball.
They're 25th and 28th
that I show, and Drake is
he is a
good running back.
I used him the way that they use him. He is a good
running back, and he could at 4.2K on DraftKings.
He could do damage.
Yeah, I don't hate the play.
He could be in the winning million maker lineup.
Yeah, I'm a little less convinced to play him too much in those types of lineups. I like that option better than maybe some of the wide receivers, but I'm always one of these types of fans that hate playing his own players from the team just because it feels like I'm being biased, and I really just never played Drake because I just haven't seen enough from him to indicate that, one, they're going to use him the way that they should be using him, and two, that he's really going to produce. You kind of been waiting on him to do something for a while, and I don't know, just never been a huge Drake believer. So I'll have a few shares, and only really in my 150 versions, not in any of my my 20, if I'm doing 20 lineups type of deal, he's not going to be in my mix.
Right.
Yeah, I really don't think that there's any other options here. Besides just people getting cute with this game, I think it's just one of those things that it's better to avoid. In theory, you could play either one of these defenses, to be honest, with as bad as everybody's talking about these guys being bad defenses and loading up on the offenses here, but they're bad offenses really more than they're bad defenses, and you almost want to play the defenses more than you want to play the offense. So I don't hate playing either one of the defenses in this particular, at pretty low prices. For a projected low total game, it's not a terrible play. It's probably not going to produce a ton, but I mean, there's no reason why either one of these teams can't pick the ball off, multiple times from either one of these quarterbacks. So,
yeah, I agree with you.
I
like the defenses in this
game a lot.
They'll be in my mix just to mix it up a little bit. I like to mix my defenses up unless there's just a clear play that I'm going with. The
two defenses I probably won't have hardly any ownership in at all this week. It's because they're over that 4,000 threshold.
Is the Baltimore Ravens.
And the Cowboys, I'm probably not going to have any ownership in them at all.
It limits you to what you
can do.
I'm in agreement there. I don't even think they're worth playing if they were cheaper than where they are. But yeah, I would agree with you there. There's a lot of weird options this week at defense. I mean, you could theoretically play the Jets defense at 1,500 is like opens up a ton of options for the rest of your team. And yeah, they're playing Dallas, but the Jets can make some plays on defense, and I don't really love the play. I don't think it's a very smart play, but you kind of like, if you get a positive score from the defense, it opens up enough options on the rest of your team that you could do something there. So I kind of think it's a better cash play than a GPP play, but I don't hate it in cash, to be honest. It's
for sure.
It's not a bad cash strategy to just load up on studs and just punt your defense to the bottom.
Yep, that's the way I'm going with
it. That's the way I'm going with it.
New England's, we've got some of the best defenses aren't on the slate. So, it's not a bad week to do that. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. Rams at San Francisco at Rams. We're almost done here. We got a few more. Let's try to power through these because it's getting late. I don't want this thing to go too long.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right.
Definitely.
San Francisco at Rams. I'll give you my quick take here. I think that this is going to be a more popular game than I'm probably willing to play, and this is just because I think of the total. The over/under at 50 here is elevating the ownership. Plus, it's the Rams, and people like playing the Rams. I don't like it. I don't like really anybody playing San Francisco. They've shown how good of a defense they are. You can have fantasy goodness against them, certainly. And I will be playing parts of this offense, but this is not going to be a game that I'm going to be stacking. I'm going to have probably zero ownership of Goff and or Garoppolo stacks. So I will play parts of the offense that are the offense here. I think a lot of the obvious plays, Cup and whatnot, are going to be fairly high owned. I think that the San Francisco running side of this is got a pretty high projection right now, just due to how much volume San Francisco runs the ball. I'm a little concerned about playing the guys like Breida and Coleman because of because their fullbacks out. And I think that does make a really significant impact on their run game, having him in there. Unfortunately, a lot of people are also talking about that and saying similar things. So I think that will somewhat affect people's willingness to play these guys. I still want them because they both are really talented running backs, and either one of them can blow up. And with the volume that they get, they both can produce. So I don't mind playing either or. I'm not going to double stack them or anything, but I'll probably have some ownership of both of these guys because you never know which one's going to go off. I like to actually have both of them ran. Breida had that huge play. He's just super talented dude that can break, and he's just got game breaking speed. And Coleman, he looked good coming back from his, coming back. He looked like pretty good. I was like not on him heavily just because he was coming back in that game, and I didn't know how much they were going to use him, but last week. But he looked pretty solid, and he was catching passes and running well and breaking tackles. So I like them both. The guy that I think that is probably going to be the lower owned play on here that I really want a decent ownership of, and want to be overweight on the field is Debo Samuel. This guy I've been just super impressed with. Like if you watch the tape on him, he's like a special talent. He's got this game breaking speed, and he hasn't really blown up yet. And I think that they're going to, with some of these problem, with the fullback being out and maybe changing up the game plan a bit, I think that they're going to target Debo a bit, get him the ball, maybe even use him in some running plays and stuff like that. Get him in some open field and let him just try to break one. He is a kind of guy that can break a slate any week, and I think this is a really good setup for him right here. That's be my low owned kind of target play on this slate. The other obvious ones, are Cup, Woods, Kittle. Cook's going to be low owned because of the matchup and because of the injury status, but he is likely to play, it looks like. And I don't hate pivoting off of Cup or Woods to go with Cook on this game at a much lower ownership here. You can get a pretty elite wide receiver at a super low rate.
A few injuries in this game that are gonna shake it up a little bit. Is Talib's gonna be out? He's out. He's out. And Gurley is in doubtful status for this game. So those are gonna shift a lot of things around in this game. Gerald Everett becomes a play in this game because of that. The defense is going to force them to have to throw the ball more quickly than they're normally used to, probably in this. I do like the Cook's call. I think it's a great play. I think Cup and Gerald Everett are going to be seeing a lot more action because of the fact that this defense with Nick Bosa and Buckner up the middle and Bosa on the ends, putting a lot of pressure on the offensive line with Goff is going to force them to have to throw the ball quicker out. But the Rams' offensive line is a very good offensive line. They don't allow a lot of sacks, so both teams have great offensive lines. So I think it's going to be a good game for the Rams in terms of their passing offense. But I do like Cup a lot in this game. I do like your call on Cooks more. I like him more than I like Woods in this game. And then Everett, but on the other side of the ball, Samuel with Talib out, that becomes a very good play. And Kittle, I like those guys a lot. I do like the running backs in this game, but I do like Coleman the best as the running back in this game.
Yeah, I'm just looking at ownership for Everett because I had him on my list as well. Right now we're projecting at 4% ownership. I think he might come up a little bit. He's been getting some talk out there as well, and he's done well so far. They're finally shifting away from Higbee, so they do run a lot of 2 tight end sets, so you never really know for sure which guy is going to get it. But I like that he is seeing some red zone targets, which is good. I know there's been some talk about Reynolds if Cook were not to play. I don't think that's going to actually happen. I think Cook will play. So, but even if he doesn't, I'm not a huge. I don't think Reynolds is the guy. I think they'll just probably end up running those 2 tight end sets more often in that case. And there has been some talk. Like I'm not really wanting to target San Francisco from like running against them. So, but yeah, Todd Gurley being out does change the dynamic there. Malcolm Brown and the coach did come out and say they wanted to get Henderson more involved. You know, you never know with his coach talk what to believe or what not to believe. So I don't really like that they would go away from Malcolm Brown. Especially if they bring in Henderson for more passing options and stuff like that. I don't like that's makes it a lot less attractive. But uh, like if you want to be contrarian here and play against the San Francisco run defense, which I don't think you do. Malcolm Brown is in a high volume potential scenario that is going to be a cheap play on the board. He's not going to have a lot of ownership even in that situation just because they're playing San Francisco, even with Gurley out. So, I mean, if he has a good game for some off chance, it's definitely one of those plays that would, be pretty contrarian. I don't. It's hard to play. It's one thing when the guy goes out and he's in a like okay scenario or even good scenario, like we saw when Saquon Barkley went out and what's his name for Gallman, yeah, thanks.
Gallman
came in, like that was a better play because we knew that he was going to get the volume, and we knew that the defense really wasn't all that scary, right? They weren't playing San Francisco. So he was a better play in that scenario from a and he also he oddly, even in that scenario, he was not very highly owned. You think he was only like in the low teens ownership in the Millie Maker, which is crazy for the price point he was and the situation that he was in. This is a harder situation, similar scenario, harder situation. So you kind of have to, like, if you're going to go with it, you're going to have to, I'm not going to probably play it, but what I would say is if you decide to play Malcolm Brown in this scenario, come up with what happens in this game if San Francisco doesn't stop the run. What's the scenario that happens in this game, and just go over all in on that particular scenario, because that's what's going to have to happen for Malcolm Brown to be a good GPP play in this particular case. Is like, is that like, okay, if San Francisco can't stop the run, does that mean that the Rams are pushing Malcolm Brown, then he's stealing all the tutties at the goal line or whatever, and maybe he's just got 3 tutties and 50 yards or something like that, and you decide to, like, okay, I'm gonna not play any of the Rams other offensive weapons if I'm playing Malcolm Brown, and I'm gonna bring it back with maybe Debo or Kittle or somebody else on the other side, thinking that the Rams are up in that scenario. So anyways, you come up with the scenario that works in that case, and just go with it, right? Like, play along with that same scenario. That's where you're gonna, you take a really low leverage play like that and just add a lot of weight to it by doubling down on the rest of your lineup to coincide with that.
Yeah, that's a great
great way to look at it. I completely agree with you on it.
So again, not a good play, but if you were going to play it that way, that's how I would do it. Okay. We talked about the tight ends here. Kittle, Everett, I think are both playable. Debo Samuel's going to be a low-owned San Francisco play. And, like guys like Goodwin and stuff like that, I guess you could play him. I'm not... He's like the fastest guy out on anywhere on the field, I think, Olympian type speed, but he basically just goes deep. And I really haven't been super impressed with his like ability to make plays happen. like I have been with like some of these like new talent like Debo and stuff like that. So I'm not a Goodwin believer. All right, I think that's it on this side. I mean, I think San Francisco defense is always in play, even against the Rams here, even with their line. They just make plays happen, so you could play them any week. They're probably pretty pricey even against the Rams this week, but let me see. Where are they at? Defense. San Francisco 2,700. That's not bad. Yeah. So I mean, they're probably in the pool. In my mind, I don't mind doing something like that, especially if you're going to play the rushing game on San Francisco game. You might as well stack it and bring it with the defense, but play Kittle with the defense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Great play too. I mean, it's similar to the.
That's a great play too, Kelsey and
KC
defense.
Yeah. And then you get kind of on the opposite side of all the people that are going to want to stack this game from LA Rams, San Francisco, even side of things. Take the kind of different approach to it. All right.
Absolutely.
Big game. Atlanta at Arizona. I think this is my other game. This is probably the third of the 3 games that I'm going to be stacking heavily. And this is not really like a not obvious stack game. It's probably going to be the second most stacked game on the slate, but certainly a lot of fantasy goodness, I think, here.
This game fantasy goodness. Showing on injury status with David Johnson, he is likely to play on Sunday, so that's going to take Chase Edmonds completely out of play here.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I saw that as well. I know a lot of people were kind of hoping he was going to be out so they could play the cheap option. I like it better this way because it means that not a lot of people are going to probably play David Johnson, and I like him.
Yeah, and what it does is that actually makes the Kamara play that much better. Because what a lot of people do is that they'll play David Johnson in this with the understanding that Atlanta's defense isn't great against the run. So they'll load up on David Johnson, leaving Kamara's ownership depressed that much more than it already is. And that's when we attack Kamara, and we go over the market on Kamara versus the field. But David Johnson is in a great spot here. Both passing games are in great spot here. Hooper, the tight end I was talking about earlier, Hooper is in an amazing spot in this game.
Yeah, it's almost too good to be true, right? Like, I mean, the guy is getting a ridiculous amount of volume, yardage, air yards. I mean, he's hitting on all the right marks. He's going up against Arizona, which is like the target team for tight ends. I think on the Wolfpack pod they mentioned that there's that they dropped the somebody on the Arizona side to that might impact the coverage there, and I hadn't really dug into that or not. But do you know what I'm talking about there?
I do,
but I'm not really sure the person. Can't remember.
Yeah, I'll dig into it afterwards, and people can ping me up on Slack if they are questioning it. But I'll find out what the deal is there. But I agree. Hooper's in a smash spot. On paper, it's one of those things. As a DFS players, you're always kind of like contrarian minded when it looks too good to be true. You're almost like, well, should I play it if it's that like obvious? And sometimes the answer is just play it because it's a good play. And I think that's one of these cases right here is like we've seen how much Matt Ryan targets Hooper, and like he's he's in a different spot than he was last year. Last year he would break a few of these plays open, but he didn't get the volume that he's getting this year. And you could count on him every now and again for hitting those long touchdown, where he does that like slant route across the field and then catches it like 30 yards down and takes it to the house. Like, he's getting a lot more volume now than he has in the past. So yeah, I love the play. Ryan's throwing a ton, so
yep.
It's just fantasy goodness. The fact that Atlanta's just not really care about the run is like just makes it that much better. Like, they're going up against Arizona, who really sucks kind of predicting the run as well. But Atlanta's just not running the ball that much. So it's hard to like get too excited about any of the running backs there, Devontae Freeman and whatnot. So like you just can't play those guys. They just volume wise aren't there. They're just game played out of it almost all the time, and I just or game scripted out of it all the time. I just don't see options on that side. They're going to be ridiculously low owned, but like it's I just don't think they're good plays. David Johnson at 10 or 11%, I think, is still a good play. Like I like the pivot to Kamara. I'm higher on Kamara than DJ just because they, watching Kyle Murray, he's kind of changing as he's kind of getting a bit more familiar with NFL play and stuff like that, and he's given David a bit more action, and I like that. But dang, it was frustrating watching him basically look at Johnson wide open over there in the flat, like play after play, throw it downfield, miss the guy, and you got David Johnson, probably your best weapon on the entire team, wide open. And he's there every play. He's out there. He's not standing in the back blocking. He's running out to the flat almost every single play, but he's not getting that many. He's not getting as many of those passes as I'd like him to get, because like I want Kyler Murray to be more of a dink and dunk to David Johnson kind of quarterback, and I think he'd be more successful doing that. It certainly opened up more plays downfield for him, but I don't know. We'll see if that changes a bit more. It looked like it was in the last game, so I like that play.
And I think
Christian Kirk's going
to be back in play in this game too.
Good.
Him and
Kyler Murray had a pretty good rapport with each other.
I love the volume there.
When he was playing, it actually increased the volume for Fitzgerald. So that's going to put Fitzgerald in play too. I think Fitzgerald's a great play in this game as well.
I do like the
Kyler Murray to Fitzgerald,
Christian
Kirk stack, and then run it back with like Julio or Hooper, and that'd be a great game stack.
Of course, you're going to have to find
some lower priced running backs to make that work, because salary wise it's just not going to happen. But because Fitzgerald's 6.1K, and then Kirk is 5.1 or 5.2K, and then Hooper's at 5K. But if you're going to roster Julio, you're pushing 8K, so you're not going to be able to get Elliott and Cook in there without really punting the last couple of positions there. And your defense, you're going to have to go way down to the Jets to make that work. Because Kyler, he's 6.5K. He's not that under 6K anymore, where it helps you to make that work. So this game, KC Houston game, these games you're gonna.
There's going to be a few spots.
There's going to be a few spots in your lineups where you're going to look at them and you're going to be like,
I don't know about those.
Those are they're pushing like 3.5K or something. So it makes you look at your roster construction, and you start to see things in there that you're like, don't know. So you have to really utilize a more artful construction on your lineup than you would think that you would have to use for these two specific games.
Yeah, I mean, I love Julio here. I mean, I love the whole stack it up all the different ways on this particular scenario. So, like, every which way. Matt Ryan and Kyler Murray are both going to be quarterbacks that I'm going to be using in stacks. Julio, I love. I mean, especially if he's coming in at 13%, I don't think is enough ownership for him. But Calvin Ridley at like 4 to 5% is
criminal.
Is very, very interesting in this particular scenario for me. So I'm gonna have a lot of him. I'm not a big Sanu fan. He'll every now and again he'll have a productive enough game to get 20 points, but it's pretty rare. And I'll be off of him probably just because of that. I'd rather have a guy like Calvin Ridley who I know can break big plays open. So I'll have different variations of those guys with Fitz and Kirk and David Johnson on the other side. So, and Hooper, obviously Hooper is going to be in there. But
and if Kirk continues to carry that Q tag all the way through to kickoff, or lock, that's going to depress his ownership even more. So I'm not afraid of that Q tag this week on him. Last week he came in and not playing, and we knew well in advance. But
yeah, I think it's another one of those game time situations that, unfortunately this game's the 4:00 afternoon game, so I think that actually kind of helps for some of those scenarios as long as you leave enough options on the board of like if he's not playing what you're going to do. It's kind of a hard like go to Keyshawn Johnson kind of scenario just because I just don't think he's good enough to produce, and it kind of gets me a little bit less interested in the whole receiver set without Kirk out there. But you got to have options if you're going to play it that way. I think Kirk's, I'll probably lock him into my lineups initially and only just pull him if he ends up not playing because it looks like he's going to play. So,
yeah.
But there's a few options that I think around his price point that you can pivot to if that ends up not happening. I think we talked about some earlier that are options there. So, all right. Anything else on that game? I think we can move on.
Nope, I think that pretty much settles it on that game. I'm not really looking at either one of the defenses on that game at all.
Neither am I. No. Dallas at the Jets. So it's probably the last of the games that I will have probably a piece of. And I'm not going to be stacking this game. I don't think I'm going to be stacking this game. I'm going to have I will have some Prescott ownership, so I may have a couple single side of this game stacks. But I won't have both sides. I'm not going to be playing Sam Darnold. So Dallas giving up 8.5 at the Jets. Obviously, the news of Darnold coming back and playing is probably the biggest of the news that changes really the entire offense there. I think he's maybe getting a little bit overhyped on his impact there than what it's maybe worth, but I mean he is a significant upgrade from any of the other options that they've had. I feel like people are going to overplay though a lot of the pass catching options here, Crowders and the Robbie Andersons and the and such. The only guy that really that interested in is Le'Veon Bell, just due to his volume and his role, and I think he's probably better with Sam Darnold there. But he's produced in the crappy scenarios. I think he's better now that they can stretch the field a bit. But on the Dallas side, just loving the Dallas side. I'm kind of off Zeke this week. It's the Jets. I never really like playing running backs against the Jets for a while now. So they're kind of like San Francisco to me as far as running backs against them. So just not. And with as weird as like the situation has been with Zeke and how they've been using him, it's not that big on risking a high amount of my budget for a guy like that. I'd rather just play Prescott and Gallup and Cooper and just let it roll. Like those are the guys right there.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to be under the field on Zeke this week. I was over the field on him last week, and that was a mistake. But I'll be under the field this week on him. Jets have a funneled defense that funnels to the pass. Their defense is tough against the run, and they are. Right now, I got them in around 10, 12 rank against the running back. And so with that, they're funneling it to the wide receivers. And so that puts in play Amari, and it also puts into play someone that some may not even know about, but will after this game because he's been hurt and he just came back. Last week off of the injury, but he's been putting up significant amount of points every time he's in the game, and that's Michael Gallup. He's a great play this week.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I like him a lot in this game, and if you wanted to stack this game on the Dallas side, I'd do a stack with Cooper, Gallup, and Prescott. Prescott has the ability to run in touchdowns, so he can get rushing touchdowns that way if they're down in the goal line.
Yeah.
I don't know if Witten's going to be in play in this game that much. Let's see what they look like in terms of against tight end. I don't think he's going to be in play in this game. They're really good against tight ends. But they're pretty susceptible to the pass against wide receivers. So I'll be keeping my ownership in this game to pretty much just Zeke at under the market ownership of 22%. So I'll be in and around about 20%, 15-20% on Zeke, but I'll have more ownership in Cooper and Gallup as well as
I don't think
Dak.
I don't think Gallup's really off of the radar. I think people know about him. I think they know the talent there. I mean, he's coming in right now projected similar to Cooper at around 9 or 10%. So they're both kind of getting about the same projected ownership. And I like both of them. I think they both, and I don't mind playing both of them together with Prescott. If I'm going to make stacks with Prescott here, I think that this is a smash spot for them. Right now, I've got them projected third right now in passing yards out of any of the games on the slate. So Dallas against the Jets, and 17th in rushing yards against the Jets. So we're talking about 320 plus passing yards and probably around 100 or less rushing yards. So that just sets up for like the Dallas onslaught kind of pass attack. And they've shown that they can be very good at doing exactly that so far this year. So I say just more of the same on that side. On the Jet side, really Dallas defense has been pretty good, and the Jets. It's hard to look at the numbers because of how bad the Jets offense has been with the crap that they've had. So you can't really look at the projection numbers and take too much of those to heart. But talent-wise, I think Bell's the play, obviously. I think, yeah, you could take a few chances with Darnold getting it downfield with Robbie Anderson or somebody like that, or Crowder for volume. But honestly, that's kind of like maybe if you need cheap plays in in your cash lineup, that might be a better option for you. But not huge on playing any of these Jets players.
Yeah, and the Jets defense comes into play in cash games primarily because of the lowest price defense.
Yeah,
and they're a viable defense at that price too.
Yeah, they gotta be in play just due to the price. The only other note I have on here, and it kind of goes contrary to my
For sure.
Sorry, what?
I was just gonna say the defense. Yeah, that's great play in cash for sure.
Yeah. The other thing here, and this would have been a play if Zeke ownership was coming in lower than it is, but since it's not, I don't really think it's a play, because I was kind of like looking at this game. I'm like, oh, okay, Jets are good against the run. That's probably going to keep Zeke ownership down. And then, like we're projecting him at like 20 something %. I was like, well, maybe this is a surprise Zeke week kind of thing, and they actually play really well against the Jets. But I don't like playing those kind of weird contrarian plays when they're going to be high owned. So it's it doesn't make sense to me. So I'll probably just be like 10% Zeke and or less, and just run with it. And if he blows up, then oh well, I got only a few shots at it. All right, last game, Denver or Tennessee at Denver. This game is probably where I'm going to focus most of my defense attention, taking either one of these defenses. The lowest kind of total on the board, and really doesn't look very good. Just yardage-wise, play-wise. I mean, there might be a few pieces of this game that are playable. We could talk about a few of those, but I'm not. Both of these defenses are pretty good, and they're in Denver at Mile High, and it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't know, man. Like Denver's shown that they can't really protect very well against the run, so yeah, you can make a case for Derrick Henry. I don't like Derrick Henry because he doesn't catch the ball.
Right.
So he's got to get you those touchdowns and yardage. Certainly better play on FanDuel, I guess. On the other side, Philip Lindsay, pretty good. Talented guy. He could probably get you a decent floor, but I don't know that his upside's there against Tennessee. I'm kind of with Geek on this one, that just like these are kind of, like Tennessee's one of those teams that just like you don't score a whole lot of fantasy goodness against, and same kind of thing with Denver pass attack. Like I don't want any of the Mariota and or team in this game.
I'm off of Tennessee's passing game. The only play on Tennessee's side would be, of course, it would be their defense
as well as the run game
for them. But
outside
that,
I'm not playing
anything from Tennessee.
On
Denver's side, Tennessee is actually pretty good against the run. So I'll probably be off of Lindsay in this game. But Tennessee against the tight end is low in terms of their ranking against the tight end. So is Noah Fant in play here? Maybe, but I'm not going there. I think there are so many other there's much more better plays at the tight end position than Noah Fant this week. So I'm not going there. So my ownership's going to stick probably to these defenses, and that'd probably be it for this game for me.
Yeah, I mean you could. I mean I mean, if you're going to play Henry, like you're going to get him at pretty low ownership, even in a pretty good situation here. It's just one of those things where like you really want to take the running back on the road against Denver in Denver. Not really. So
Yeah.
I think that's it. I mean, for the main slate, those are the big games, and I think the games that I think are obvious. I think a lot of people are going to be stacking those up. I think we talked about a few of those other a little bit less owned games. My favorite being that Baltimore Cincy. I think you were aligned there with me on that game, so I think we can get after it. And then there's parts of these other games, Seattle and Cleveland, Dallas, Jacksonville, New Orleans, and the Rams game that you can take some unique approaches to really kind of differentiate some of those other stacked lineups that a lot of people are going to be on.
For sure.
I'm in complete agreement with you across the entire slate on this one.
I think it's
going to lend to really interesting lineup construction this week. And who knows? Those two the top games where we think that they're going to go off. Do they go off? They could, but they also could duck it out too. So we've seen that before.
Absolutely. All right, Burns. Well, thank you so much, and appreciate all the insight. I think this has been great, and maybe we'll do this more frequently than we have been.
And all the subs that can hit us up in Slack, Chad. I'm Burns273 in Slack. That's HunterSinclair in Slack, and Hunter has a vast amount of information and knowledge of the game. He like me, we're GPP guys, true and through, and we push his Qs, so we take risks where other people may not. So because we're going after those Qs, and we're going after these big GPPs, and we want to take them down. But hope you guys found this to be helpful and informational for you for your week 6 build, and we appreciate the time that you have to listen to this pod, and we'll be seeing you guys in Slack chat.
All right, see ya. Signing off.